and what his famous, oh my gosh, I can't even talk. The experiment I'd like to talk about today is the Soloman Asch conformity experiment. In this experiment, Asch came up with an experiment in which everybody is in on the experiment except for one particular person. So they set up a panel, and the one individual who's not in on the experiment is told this is about perception, when of course that's not really what it's about. It's about conformity. They have an experimenter come up in front of this group and say, this is about line segment perception. And they show a line segment, right? And then what happens is they have another piece of paper where there are other line segments. And then the idea is, labeled A, B, C, or 1, 2, and 3, they'll ask, please say the letter or number of the line segment that matches the first one. Well, everyone has been told, pick one that is not the correct one, because they're in on the experiment. So the first person says, oh, well, the correct answer is 1, but they'll say, it's 3. So the next person will say 3, and the next person will say 3. And then our experimentee, or whatever you want to call them, the person who's not in on it, looks around and says, no, it's 1, says the correct answer. But then everybody else says, in this particular, my example is 3. So they do this a couple of times, and what do you think happens? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the idea is that the next time that the person next to them says the wrong answer, they will say the wrong answer as well. So the question is, well, why do they do this? Why would you answer something that you know is not right, but say it anyway? When we talk about conformity, sometimes we talk about peer pressure. This is not other people bullying the individual into saying, no, you have to say 3 because all the rest of us did. But a person begins to doubt themselves. Maybe I didn't hear the instructions correctly. Maybe I'm not really sure what's being asked of me. Do I misunderstand the whole thing? And they'll end up kind of going along with the group because, number one, they don't want to stick out. Number two, they think they're doing the wrong thing, and for several other reasons, perhaps. There's another one where they have, again, everyone's in on the experiment except the one person. They have a person comes in and says, yes, I would like to be in this experiment, right? Because they agreed to be in a psychology experiment. They're given a piece of paper and they're told, please go into this room and fill out this piece of paper. Well, they're in a room and there's several people, say, 6 or 7 people who are all filling out forms. And at some point, the experiment group, not the people who are signing papers, but they start pushing smoke out of a ventilation duct, or in another case it was from underneath the door, and quite a bit of smoke. Something where you would say, oh my gosh, something's wrong. But when the person looks around at everybody else, they're just filling out forms. And so in that particular case, almost invariably, the person who is not in on the experiment will continue to fill out their form as well. Now, I want to draw attention to the fact that in real life, if you're in a room and smoke started pouring out, into the room, someone else is also going to say something. I should have said this in the Milgram experiment, but in the Milgram experiment, when the person was on their own, they almost always went along with the experimenter, saying, please continue. But in Milgram's experiment, he put 3 other individuals who then also said, no, I don't want to continue. And then the person who was not, who was being experimented on, oftentimes said, yes, I would like to stop as well, allowing them to stop when many of them wanted to anyway. In the Asch experiment, it's kind of this far off tweak on real life. I mean, would you be in a room where smoke was pouring in and nobody said anything? Probably not. But that's the Asch experiment. Well, where people will go along with something that is not correct if they are unsure of themselves. Now, if it goes on for too long, my guess is the person would eventually remove themselves from that. If you work in an organization where you know things are going wrong, but they continue on that path, you probably won't stay with that particular organization unless, of course, maybe they pay very well.